Okay, so you have a question, hopefully some focus questions, and hopefully you started thinking about the research that you're going to do to make your proposal really powerful. Instead of just writing random, I'm going to interview a psychologist, or I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to look at a website, we're going to get a little bit more detailed. So what you need to make sure you do is that you choose suitable research. Now, in your research practices course, you were taught about validity, reliability, bias, currency, authorship, all of those things that can influence the appropriateness of a source. You also need to think about, does it make sense for you to do something? So when you are doing this, you really need to think about the full range of research processes that you could engage in. This is a little snapshot off of the SACE website, and it gives you an idea of all the different things that could encompass research. I mean, it's literally anything. If you talk to someone, research, write it down, write down some notes. Doesn't even have to be a formal interview. If you see something, take a photo of it. If you experience something, you're catching the bus and you see something happen, then there you go. Video it if you can do it ethically, or write about it. There's some research. You're starting to really think, use your life to help you. So there are so many different things you can do. This is why the research project works, because you can pick basically any topic and use basically anything, as long as it's appropriate, to help you get there. So how do you tell if something's appropriate? Well, hopefully in year 11 you went through a task that looked like this. This is a range of different resources that you might use, and you could think about whether they're primary or secondary and why they're appropriate to you. Now, for every person, this is going to be different. If you are doing a highly technical topic, you might really need expert advice because they're the only people who can explain it properly. Maybe you're doing something cutting edge that no one has actually, really published on. So maybe you need to talk to someone who's researching that to get that really up-to-date current understanding. Maybe you are trying to look at social issues, so a broader survey is actually going to be a better representation than just one person's opinion, because you're going to be able to look at different age groups and genders and socioeconomic circumstances and those sorts of things. Maybe an experiment is perfect. Now, you have to really think about the appropriateness though. So if you are doing a topic on body image, it is probably unethical to do an experiment that could hurt someone because of their understanding of body image. You don't make them go on a diet. You don't put yourself or someone else at danger. But if you want to find out about the best soil types to grow, your veggie patch out the back of your house, then maybe trying to grow some veggies is a really good idea. So you really need to think about what's appropriate. This list gives you heaps of different things that you could look at. In your proposal, we're wanting to see specifics. So if you say, I'm going to use some books, we want to see, what books do you think you're going to use? You might not actually use them, but propose to use them. And then when you're sitting there in your research project class and you think, oh my God, I don't even know what to do next, you go back to your proposal, because that is your to-do list. It is actually telling you what to do. You said you were going to watch Current Affair, there you go. Right? You said you were going to watch Q&A, there you go. You said you were going to go on YouTube, there you go. There is your thing that you are going to actually do. Make it specific. More time spent planning, hopefully, will make your research much easier. So, some tips and tricks for young players. We would strongly recommend that you are engaging in primary research. It is very hard to do the research project well if you don't have primary research. In saying that, you might not want to try and interview 50 people, because that's a lot and it's going to take a long time. But you might have to send out 50 emails to get anyone to actually respond. So be aware that every primary interaction is going to have a very long process of getting things sorted. There's also ethics involved, which we'll talk about later. Now, for you at this stage, you might start to think about, okay, I read a book by this guy. Maybe that guy's available for an interview. Actually, I spoke to someone the other day and they talked about my topic. I might try and interview them. Oh my God, I've read an article online. Maybe that person is available. Actually, they mentioned someone in the article who this happened to, so maybe they're available. Really use your sources and show that you're getting these sources from places like articles, online books, etc. Because it's much better than just picking your mum because, well, it's easy. When you're doing this, make sure that you keep a record. So a contact table is a really simple thing to do. Have a page in your folder where you talk about who the person is, why you want to do, and an example of your contact. We want evidence. We want to see that you actually did contact that person, and if you did contact them, why they were useful. In terms of secondary research, the library is full of stuff called books, and they're quite useful. We also have things that are useful called databases, and these databases are particularly the Gale database, the Reference Center, uni databases. There's so many things out there. There's people devoting their lives to research, and they're creating stuff for you to use. Use it. Some of it might be a bit hardcore. That's awesome. You'll learn some new words. When you are, doing a media study, look at a whole bunch of different newspapers. Don't just stick to the advertiser. God, don't just stick to the advertiser at all. Stick to, a range of newspapers, a range of magazines. Look at what is possible, what you've got available to you, and try and think outside the box as much as possible. However, please remember appropriateness. If you have all your friends doing an interview and you think, yeah, I should do an interview too, and your topic doesn't make sense to have an interview, it is not going to benefit you. It must be appropriate and suitable for your question. As you are going through, again, we like to hear your thoughts. So it's a really nice idea. If you can, you don't have to. Again, it's your research project. You only do what you want to do. You might want to keep a little journal of the things that you are planning. So why do you want Mr. X? Why do you want your parents? Why do you want the school counselor? And what is it that you can get from them that's going to be useful? This is an example of a person who is studying a nut allergy and how it affects a person living with it. And so they have interviews because it makes sense for them to have interviews. As you're going through, you might start making a really nice list of processes, and that's good. We definitely want that. But you also have to remember you only have a term to do this. We want your folios at the end of term 1. You have about 10 weeks to produce this. So if you are planning on taking a trip to America and interviewing 33 people and reading 200 books, you're going to have a really hard time. You need to be realistic about what you can achieve, and you need to really think about the amount of time that you should be spending on a subject that is only 10 credits. Now, that's not to say don't do homework, that's to say be realistic. So an interview is something that will take some time because you will need to plan the interview, write the questions, draft the questions, get ethics approval, contact the person, do the interview, annotate the interview, cross-check some of the things they say. It's not just doing an interview. So leave yourself time. And that's where a timeline is really powerful. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm really bad at timelines because I can't envision what I'm going to be doing in 3 weeks' time. But if you can plot out your research processes broadly, that might be really useful for you to actually start to have a think about what you can do in a reasonable amount of time. Okay. Try and chart it across your secondary and primary, and try to have a think about how long it's going to take you to do things. You guys had year 11 to help you. You know that it takes a little while to do bits and pieces. Give yourself an appropriate amount of time. This person's research was they were creating an architectural set of designs for a hotel suite, and you can see that by week 5, they really had to have a lot of their research done, because by week 8, they were actually drawing up the floor plan, but then they knew that once they got the floor plan, they were going to have to do some extra research, so it's all nicely drawn up. You might draw up a timeline, it might not work, that's totally fine. Use checklists, use sticky notes, do whatever it is, reminders in your phone. Smaller goals per week are far more useful, but you need a big picture as well. On day 1 of your research project classes in 2016, you will be given a timeline of due dates and expectations. Use this to help you effectively. You don't have a lot of time. So it's really about pointed, useful, suitable processes that will really make your life easier.